Erika Kirk has said a lot of weird shit. She has worn a lot of weird shit for a lot of weird occasions. She made a lot of odd hair and makeup choices. She's generally just pretty off, but this is the weirdest, wackiest yet eerie, incriminating, dare I say. And listen, Charlie is somebody who I've made clear many times here. This is a person who held and lived by views I very fundamentally disagreed with, and at the same time, his death was bad. Really bad. So imagine me saying he would have wanted it that way. Erika Kirk may have accidentally revealed something about Charlie's death, and it went completely over everyone's head. It was eerie, and she didn't just say it once, she said it twice. And what that statement suggests about how she views what happened is honestly chilling. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the exact moments that Erika did this. And once you hear it, and understand the calculations and the choreography behind it, a lot of other unanswered questions around this story start lining up. And real quick, if you're new here, I'm Lauren Paritra, Willa Paritra, my four-legged boss, and daughter is roaming around. You might hear her little pawsies. And we currently have a lead on Katie Miller, who is the wife of Stephen Little Bitch Miller, the pale white nationalist from Santa Monica behind all this ICE terror. And we currently have a lead on her in her podcast. She built that podcast on the backs of trafficked children, and we are out here bootstrapping this thing, so consider every like, every sub, every comment, 6 words or more, every hype, as a direct FU to Katie and Stephen Little Bitch Miller. We gotta maintain our lead out of fear principle. So now, if you've watched my last couple of videos, you already know we've covered Erika's degree questions, the timeline issues, her sus as fuck family background, and her background that just doesn't seem to line up with any sort of paper trail. But there are a few names and a few details we haven't talked about yet, and they matter because they add context to what she eventually says. And at the time of this recording, we're exactly 6 months out from Charlie's death, which means we've got a new sizzle reel.
I have to say this without getting emotional, but I'm very proud of my husband.
More than anything, Charlie wanted to do not his will, but God's will. There was no keeping score between us. We were a team, working together for the same mission. Charlie's life was a turning point for this country. It was a miracle.
So one of the earliest things Erika did publicly when Charlie was offed was release a video exactly 30 days after he died. People grieve in different ways, grift in different ways. That alone doesn't really stand out, but what caught my attention was how the video was put together. Okay, obviously professionally lit, carefully framed and scored, but the tense cinematic violin, the kind of soundtrack you would normally hear right before a big reveal in like a thriller movie, and the words she's saying about grief, she talks about how loss moves in waves, how one day she's on the floor crying out to Jesus, and then the next she's smiling at family photos. Okay, whatever. She says suffering clarified how much she loved Charlie. She says she has never loved him more than she does now. In theory, could sound sweet, sincere. I know videos can be a creative outlet. Making them have helped me heal or work through grief at times too, but the tone of this video, this grief sizzle reel, really, we just breezed past this one a little too quickly. When you watch it, it pulls your brain somewhere else. A lot of viewers had the same reactions watching it. Something about it feels like it's meant to communicate something very specifically. And we know that Erika Kirk and Turning Point USA, Toilet Paper USA, they have plans in place for everything. Every move is carefully choreographed. Every message is carefully choreographed. So like, what is this one trying to say? And if it were me, talking scenarios here for a second, if I died and my husband treated my death like a marketing milestone with a 30-day recap sizzle reel featuring a tense building violin while he went on tour firing off t-shirt cannons, running his hands through somebody else's hair at my memorial, and generally treating the whole situation like the opening act of a Vegas residency, I might personally have a few thoughts about that. It might make my friends feel pretty fucking weird because it is weird. And I wanted to understand it more myself. So upon consulting Dr. Google, what psychologists describe this as is like an expectation mismatch. Most people, we have an idea of what grief looks like. Unfortunately, it's part of our universal lived experience. The shittiest one arguably. So when somebody arrives so polished, edited, rehearsed, and awkward at every single milestone, like 30 days, your brains notice subconsciously. And that difference stands out immediately. So once that sets in, that feeling, people start looking more closely. And that's when other questions around Erika and her bizarre behavior started to pick up steam. So all of that sits in the background because that's where things go when they get sideways and extremely sus. And I need you to really listen to what Erika admits on this first stop of her Grief World Tour, because what made the interview feel sus is that it was being hyped as her first sit-down interview, even though by that point she'd already been very visible, speaking at events, media mania, every media hit she could get her face on, and basically stepping into Charlie Kirk's role publicly. The difference is those appearances were clearly tied to her promoting something she could make a buck off of, Turning Point USA, the book, continuing a show. But this one was framed as a more personal moment.
He's in heaven. And he sees everything full picture. And I truly believe that if the Lord, which this does not happen, but if the Lord gave him an option to return back to earth, and if the Lord said, this is what your death is going to be the catalyst for, do you want to go back and exchange it? He'd say no. Wow.
So what was kind of weird about the interview is that it's being marketed, again, as Erika Kirk's first sit-down interview, even though she'd already been like well on a tour by then. She'd already been everywhere since Charlie's speaking at events, appearing on conservative media. She was doing podcasts, stage appearances, stepping into leadership at Turning Point USA real quick. The difference is like those earlier appearances were basically promotional or movement building, while this one was supposed to be real and raw. But even that felt way manufactured. And look, maybe she meant something noble, but thinking from Charlie's perspective, say somewhere in the afterlife, you hear your wife say your death is a catalyst for her finally getting the spotlight she so thirstily craved her entire pageant life. Maybe the idea that she meant to communicate was that Charlie believed so strongly in the cause of Turning Point USA chapters throughout the USA that he'd accept the risks and the outcome. Feels like a reach, but when people hear he wouldn't want it undone, their brains immediately skirt and start picturing the life on the other side of that sentence. And we're now seeing his own people subtly sending out what I think are distress signals, including this one from Blake Neff.
Blake, any thoughts? You know, it's... Erika said that if Charlie was given the choice to undo what happened and come back, he wouldn't, she thought, because of what was unleashed by it.
So Neff is the producer of the Charlie Kirk show. He's also a ultra-conservative commentator who I believe came up in the same political orbit as Charlie and the Turning Point USA world. And according to him, what Erika said about Charlie immediately stood out. He says she described Charlie as somebody who wouldn't have wanted his assassination undone. Keep in mind, in a previous video, we covered how Turning Point USA is allegedly, emphasis on this, protect me, is booting employees who were called family on a call right after he was offed, but are now getting kicked to the curb, including a longtime communications executive who was booted after asking questions about Kirk's, and then reportedly had private investigators sent to photograph her house. We showed videos of it. Sounds like intimidation to me, and I don't think I'm alone in saying this, that like we humans have a pretty basic operation system when it comes to death. If somebody you love dies, I think the instinct is pretty simple. You want them back. You want to call them one more day, one more conversation. Anything more, you would do anything to see them again. That's the language people reach for when they're grieving. So when somebody frames a death as something the person wouldn't want undone, your brain, like my brain short circuits for a second, because now we're in a different category of humility here. Normally, when somebody dies, we describe it one of two ways. It's either a tragedy, meaning they should still be here, or maybe it's a sacrifice or something unfair. Maybe they believed in something so strongly, like joining the military. I don't fucking know. But saying somebody wouldn't want the outcome reversed is different, especially with a young person, which, okay, leads to a pretty basic question here. You're telling me a guy with a wife and kids, an entire life still ahead of him, who loved the spotlight equally, would look at the option to come back and go, no thanks, let's leave it as is. That graphic death. And when people hear that, they start looking around at the life he supposedly wouldn't want to return to. Because the public version of that life right now is weird. A widow who is suddenly everywhere on every stage in America, building a national profile, a household name, describing herself as a sole provider, inserting herself into the movement he built. The kids, meanwhile, are nowhere to be seen. We're going to keep digging in here. And if you've been following this story with me and you want to keep digging into the details as they come, make sure you're subscribed. There's a lot going on here, and we're going to keep pulling on the strings. Again, I am Lauren P. across all social channels. Follow me, message me anywhere. Remember, we've got to keep a lead on Katie Miller, the wife of Stephen Little Bitch Miller. It's all I ask. We're people powered. I'm not, have to do anything else. Subscribe and let's maintain our lead out of pure principle. Willa, can you say, we are Charlie Kirk? We are Charlie Kirk. Be back.